Welcome to Rauta, Turku Saatanalle 8, that is Turku for Satan, number 8. And it's going to be an interesting thing. We are here at the horse racetrack. Yes, indeed, this is not your typical venue, nor the typical mindset to do interviews with. But anyway, here we have some cool black metal bands. And before I start introducing the artist of the day, shout out goes to Mr. Sigurd, thank you for being us with board, and also Funeral Industries for sending me this nice shirt. Thank you guys. But now for the menu, we have me back on the menu with Vreid from Norway. How are you, sir? Could you introduce yourself to the audience who are clueless as me?
My name is Jarle Woll. I'm from the Norwegian band Vreid, and we're here to play in Turku for the first time today.
You're here for the Finnish audience to play some black metal, but you're also known for kind of a black and roll kind of style. I don't know if it's your definition or label definition or people of otherwise, but how would you describe your music to the audience who are totally clueless about what you do?
Black metal and rock.
Black metal and rock.
You know, this label stuff. It was funny when I don't remember how it first came up, but it was tagged black and roll because I guess it started with the first album we released. You know, I think it was from the song called "Raped by Light." It's a very much classical black metal feeling to it, but it got this really happy upbeat to it. So we got kind of the black and roll tag from that. You know, but I don't care much about it. You know, listen to the music, and for me, I don't have any more interest in what people call it.
That could be also seen as a kind of a positive ways to describe that your music is at least some level of originality compared to so many other Norwegian bands from the 90s. Was it intentional or did it just happen by accident?
A combination, I guess, you know, because it's always been important for us to not have any boundaries at all. I've never cared if we were called black metal, death, thrash, heavy punk, whatever people want to call it, because for me it's just about writing music, and that's been the focus all the way. And I love to have a diversity in our music. You know, a lot of band back in the days that are more like a limit to their sound, but I think that a lot of bands expanded and some bands stay very loyal and traditional, and that's very cool. I like a lot of bands like that. But for me personally, it's always been important to incorporate the music that I want to express, and you know, and my heart and feelings always been closest to a lot of black metal bands when I started writing myself, so that was natural. But for me, I never view us as a black metal band or whatever, you know. We just write music, we write lyrics, we do shows, and I don't really pay much attention beyond that what we're captured as.
Your style could be described as a more like a modern days of, well, let's call it black metal for the sake of conversation, compared to the what 1990s offered, but your roots are very much in the 90s. You're not a new and young guy in the scene, but Vreid is more like a younger generation of bands in so many ways, even though you already have quite a long history. How do you think your career as an artist, as well as a kind of a band member, has evolved since 90s that now that we're in 2020?
You know, my background came very much for the heavy rock thing, so the black metal thing was when it exploded in the early 90s with the Norwegian bands. That's what captured my interest of it, you know, and immediately they had an effect on us, and of course that was the most important part in the beginning of the band, I guess, and especially when we did back with Vindir, that was very close to the black metal scene, even though it was a lot of folkloric elements and stuff like that. With Vreid, it immediately became, you know, for me important to say there are no really like, we were not thinking of we are black metal, what kind of scene. We never felt part of a scene or anything like that, you know. But of course, I understand that the audience, the listeners, view us as a kind of like a black metal kind of band, black and roll or whatever, and that's fine, you know. I think that's brilliant, you know, that we are associated with bands like, you know, Dark Throne, Immortal, and stuff like that. You know, they have been huge inspirations, but we've always taken our own steps and developed stuff. You know, we tried with going on a bit more progressive direction on some albums. A lot of them have been a lot of more traditional rock and roll that you can find in the 70s and stuff like that, and we're going to continue that, you know. I don't have any plans for how the next album is going to be. I start writing riffs, you know. For me it's all about riffs. I love riffs, you know. That's I think
riff-driven music.
Yeah, riff, you know. I love that word itself, you know. Like riff is,
it's kind of a soft and soothing.
Yeah. So, and it makes me think about Tony Iommi or something like that. That's the riff, you know, and that's the passion, that's the feeling I want to create. And then you have drums and you have my bass and vocals and everything just builds around it, but it's that little beautiful thing called riff, you know. That's what it's all about.
Norwegian baggage with all bands coming from the 90s or even 80s if we go back far enough with bands like Dark Throne and Mayhem, but that also kind of created a certain level of quality and style with it, even though the bands were very different. How hard or easy for that respect was for you guys pick it up after Winder with the creating a new band, new sound, and make yourself name?
I think that of course it was natural that we're going to be compared to Winder, you know. All of the members when we started the band had played in Winder. I myself was one of the songwriters for Winder on the last 2 albums, so of course we were everyone was wondering, is it going to sound like a new Winder album when it came out, you know, and like people could hear some elements, but there were also a lot of surprises. This is not like a new Winder album. No, obviously it's not. Then we would have tried to continue as Winder. But we decided immediately that felt completely wrong, and so we wanted to start a new project. And when we started Vreid, it was like we want to just go in the direction, go back in the studio, start with the riff again, have the ideas, build it up. But of course there will always be strong elements of Winder and how Winder might have been in the future, because this is a lot of the same persons, you know. We write music, we play together, and we never had like we can't do this because it sounds like Winder or stuff like that. For us it was important just write the riffs, write good songs, make them as great as possible, and don't pay any more attention to how people look at it, you know. Either people's going to appreciate it or not. It's not that much more complicated, I guess.
Exactly. Winder was known for being really like uber melodic stuff, but you went to rock and rollist direction. How much for you it was different to just like, okay, I'm gonna just put these melodies a little bit aside, but not force-fed? Like, or you already answered parts of that, but I mean, how different mindset it had to be to create this kind of a diversity, the difference between these 2 bands?
Well, me and Valfar, when we were already started to work on what's going to be the 5th album of Winder before, just right before he died. So we were like the songs. We were on the first album called Helvete. That was going to be on the new album. Parts of the opening track from our first album, Kraft, Wrath of Mine, that was going to be on the new Winder album and stuff like that. So with Winder also we were going a bit less melodic for that album, a bit more brutal, straightforward sound. I don't know if that would have been the future for Winder 10, 15 years later, but for the 5th album, that was the start where we were trying to build with it. And when I then started to continue writing music for new music under a new name, I took some of the ideas, the riffs that I had, and built further on that. And of course, when that tragedy, when it struck and everything went black, it also I felt kind of like a urge to go back to something primitive, go back to the studio, me, guitar player, drummer, just start getting that feelings out again and hammer it out, you know, and then the album was the result of that process.
Now, you mentioned the tragedy, and this is what I want to tell about the new audience, that people might not already have grasped the idea that Winder ended very tragic way, a too soon death that took place. Did you have the time to mourn that, or did you just kind of get over with creating new music instead of having this break?
I think the mourning process was very long, and you know, some ways it never ends in a way, I guess. But we never sat down and tried to, you know, mourn in that way. My reaction instantly was just go back and work with music, you know. And I think that was kind of
what he would have hoped for.
Absolutely, I think so, and I think that was an important thing to keep saying under those circumstances. For the first couple of years, when I look back at those years, they are quite blurry in many ways, but it was very important to work with music, you know. And of course, then one felt a connection, since me and Valfar grew up together, since we were friends long before we started the music. We always sat listening to music together. We did a lot of music, make it together and stuff like that. So I guess that keep on writing music and lyrics made it feel still having him there in some way, and it still does, you know.
As a ghost of certain spirit,
I don't know what to call it, but when you have done something so much or for so long time with a person, you still feel their presence, you know. When we had a lot of, you know, quarrels about stuff, you know, like again, and I think that's to have that kind of tension is very, very good. in a creative way, and then we had a lot of enjoyment with working music. But when I then start with ideas, I often kind of automatically think, how would Teddy react to this song? What would he think about this song? You know, it's like, so that's kind of, yeah, I think the music and keep continuing that was very good for my mental health in many ways, you know, instead of just sitting down and acknowledge this is a tragedy. It is, you know, but it's been like a motivation to just keep going. You never know when it's going to end, so just keep going as long as you can.
If you don't mind me asking, the tragedy was at least rumored to have connected with alcohol and stuff. The tragedy. With Wildfire? No? So that was the rumor going on. Has that affected when those rumors were like taking place? Did you feel like annoyed or whatever? Or was it just like something that, okay, people write or keep telling stories or whatever?
I didn't pay attention at all, you know. Most people are idiots. I don't care what I think about it. You know, for me it was the tragedy for his family, for his friends and around us. What other people think, I couldn't care at all, you know. And of course, to this day, I never cared about that, you know. It was a shock for everyone around us, and you know, that's what it is. So what people say or think, I don't give a fuck about.
Do you care at least when people are now writing about Vreid? I mean, like if you get bad reviews or stories which don't have any truth in them, is it all just like who gives a damn, or does it have any kind of a back of the side?
Of course, the back of your head, you're like, why are you saying this kind of shit or whatever? But I try not to pay any attention to this, you know, because it doesn't create anything. When you hear shit about yourself or your band, it's like, oh, fine, that's your opinion. If you had good things, well, I appreciate that, you know, you like what I'm doing. I think everyone that's creating art, of course, want appreciation, you know. It's like, why else make it? Of course, you make it, you want to do this is something you want to get out there, but if I didn't want appreciation for it, why would I?
Yeah, why would you release it?
So then I release it, and of course appreciate that. So I think that's not just with art. That's a healthy way of living. Saying, you know, when people slag you off, it's like, fine, you know, that's your opinion. I don't care about you.
All right. How about live versus studio? Which comes first in your opinion when it's talk about Vreid?
For me, then it's back to that beautiful word again, the riff. You know, that's what it's all about. I write all music unplugged. I have my guitar and I don't have it on an amp or anything. I like to write music to just sit in here on the guitar, and that's how I start. So that whole process of creating some riffs, starting with the layers, planning drums and lines and basses, and build that's the whole process for me, you know. And then the other guys come in, and then we start, you know. And then it's like I might have this idea. You're just almost shaking because it's going to be so great, and it's like, yeah. And the other way around, you know. Maybe I'm not sure about this. Is it going to be really like cool thing, and everyone gets involved, and it's like, fuck yeah, this is amazing, you know. And that feeling for me is the whole thing, you know. The actual recording is okay, but also quite boring, I think, you know. I think it's
Mandatory Evil?
Yeah, the idea is already here. I can hear that song, you know. That's perfect. And then you should try to get as close to what I'm hearing in my head. So the studio can be great, but it can also be very frustrating. It's like how to get this sound in my voice, in my head. How to get it out there, you know. So
how do you execute it?
Yeah, exactly. So that could be, but of course, it's when you're happy with it, then it's a fantastic feeling. And with the live stuff, I love playing shows. I hate to rehearse. I rather sit around doing my taxes or whatever, you know. I think it's one of the most boring things I know, to sit down and play my own songs and bass, and you know.
Yeah, repeat and repeat.
Now we're ready. Let's go play, you know. Yeah. But when you get on stage and get your band and you see the crowd and direction and stuff like that, then it's a magic feeling. I love that. So this show we're doing today, it's been like 8 to 9 months. It's one of the longest breaks we had in a while, so we can't wait to be back on stage. But I was sitting early this week playing the songs for myself, you know, to make sure I still remember them, you know, and everything's cool. It's like,
yeah, right.
Well, in a couple of hours going on stage, then it's like, I love it.
What's the best and worst part of touring or doing gigs?
The best part is doing the gigs. You know, it's like when you, I don't know. Sometimes when you get that the sound can be quite crappy on stage. That's the way it is when you're tour. You know, it's different venues and different location, and everything is like so. But when you get that really, you can feel it like a wall behind you, and everything's working, and you can see the reaction. You know,
it's the magic happening.
It's a magic happening. You know, it's like that's what I understand. That's why that's why we're traveling 30 hours in a weekend to do a show or whatever. When you get that feeling, maybe just one part of a song is magical. You know, the rest of the show can be very good and it's intense, but you get to those magical parts. It's like everything kind of, you lose sense of time or whatever. You just get into that song completely, and that's such a good feeling. That's what you're chasing all the time. You know, but of course, the boring part is getting to the places you are to.
Getting at the airport.
Yeah. Stuff like I say, traveling, you know. Before I liked it more. It was more like, you know, it's an adventure. I like to see the world. I like to travel to see the world, and so I do a lot of traveling and vacation stuff like that. But that part of just traveling has started to get more and more annoying. I guess I'm getting older and hate that more and more. You know, I like to stay at home and create riffs again. But that travel part, it's a mandatory evil to get out and chase that feeling.
I think Shatterwork from Horna band, which you probably know by the name at least and so forth, he once said to me that it's like the 23 hours of the whole day. That's the annoying part, but that 60 minutes on stage makes it all worthwhile. How much do you agree with this?
100%. I think it's very accurate, and the feeling when you are going off stage after a very good show, you just want, is it over already? You know, it's like you kind of like you just want it to continue. You know, when you can have this really strong high on it. It's like feeling you're overwhelmed and the energy is there, and then like often half an hour later and you just sit down and you feel very empty. You know, it's like you just wanted that to keep going and going and going. You know,
so it's basically like a sex on stage.
Yeah, it is. It's like the best drug, I guess, just to stay there on stage and get that feeling. You know, and it doesn't have to just be the biggest shows or. Sometimes it's not like the crowd reaction can be different, you know, but maybe there's one song on one show that is like you get this feeling, you can see it, and you can see the reaction. Yeah, it's like so. That's magic.
What do you do besides the actual show, getting warmed up, sleeping? Obviously, this mandatory stuff, eating and stuff like that. How do you kill time? What is your magic secret for like? This is how you avoid becoming frustrated when you do gigs and tour.
Well, today I watched a soccer match. That's the other.
What's your favorite team?
Liverpool. That's my team, you know, and I see all the matches and stuff like that. So they just won today. So that was a great to see. Have 2 hours sitting backstage and watch football. It was amazing. I try to explore the cities that I visit. You know, that's like. And I love when you, especially on tour, and we're on tour bus, when you wake up in a new city and you just open the door and see how. I'm standing in the middle of a fucking new city again. It's brilliant area. That makes you a bit like, oh, if you complain you're tired traveling, which I just did and stuff like that, then when you get into I'm getting to see a new, beautiful city each day, go out, get a breakfast, get a drink, and try and find maybe a historical sighting or something unique there. You know, that's a very good feeling. So. From I wake up, a couple of hours around the city, that I love, then it's back to sound checks again, which is a mandatory shit, you know, it's something you have to do, and that waiting part is boring, but wake up in the morning in a fantastic city, can be a very good feeling.
One or two your favorite places, like ever, like, I never imagined when I go to the city called Beep, and then I was like, wow, this is overwhelming. Do you have such memories? One or two, maybe?
Yeah. Tokyo, when we played there several times now, and I remember coming to Tokyo for the first time. It's like surreal. I would never imagine that when I was like 10, 15 years old, starting to play, and we wanted to have a band that we're going to have our own show play in Tokyo. It's like, and it's to see that parallel world over there. It's crazy, you know. It's completely different what we used to, and I love that. So that was a brilliant feeling. And actually last year when we did our first show ever in Mexico, when you flew in over that city to see Mexico City, it's such a sight. We were just sitting there with jaw drops and was like,
this is so big.
Yeah, came in there to play on a big Formula One arena, you know, and there was my favorite childhood bands like Kiss and Alice Cooper playing. We're playing the stage and there's 15,000 people going crazy in Mexico. It's like this is unreal, you know. So when you get this kind of experiences, it's like, well, okay, we can do some traveling. Maybe we can do some traveling.
Cool,
I can't complain.
Okay. Any place above all the rest in the world where you haven't been, but would you like to go, big band or by yourself? It doesn't matter.
Ooh, that's a good question. I travel a lot, but with the band, it would be great to actually go and play Russia.
Okay, we haven't been in
Never been in Russia. And
why so?
We had a couple of shows set up, and then it fell through with the promoter and stuff like that. So it's like this, you know, it feels kind of strange to play. I think it's 26 or 27 countries now, but never Russia. So that would be amazing to play in Moscow or St. Petersburg or those kind of cities, and just to see those cities.
Exactly.
And of course also Australia. We've never been to Australia, so
never been to Australia.
Never been to Australia.
What the fuck is wrong with those kangaroo people?
I'd love to go over there. Whenever, on also a personal level. So if we go and do some shows in Australia, I'm going to stay there for a while because it seems like a very fascinating continent.
All right, let's go a little bit deeper before we call it quits. If there would be a sort of ideological picture to tell about Vreid, or maybe your personal life, that's how you define, I don't know. How could you describe it in a few words, maybe, or a few sentences?
Yeah,
Up to you.
That's a big question.
Yes.
Very big question. Well, for me, is to try and tell a story. Always try to tell a story. That's why I've always been trying to go back to history, to find interesting stories, and try and see that. For me, that's not just about telling something about the Viking era, the World War I or II, whatever. It's not just about bringing the story up again, but to see that how closely we are actually connected to our history without knowing it. You know, there's so many things that they feel distant, but when you peel it down and look at the story, you can see the same patterns coming over and over again. It's like we're doing this special song, a cover song, and we're gonna present it on the Nobel Peace Center in Oslo. There was something we've never done, and it's a cover song. And we're starting to look into songs from the 60s and the 70s, and how kind of they were censored and how they addressed themes during, with the rock and roll and the early start of heavy and hard rock and stuff like that. And I feel now 60 years later, the world haven't changed much, you know. It's the same mechanisms running around, and we think these times are so special, it's so unique, and there's new disasters, and there's everything feels like, well, this is something quite unique, and the world has never seen it. Well, I think the world has seen a lot over and over again, but
it's cyclical, even though the technological steps.
Exactly, you know, and of course, I think maybe it's a natural thing for us as humans to feel like that, but I think it's very, very healthy to look back at history and always can you find areas to connect with it, you know, and that's some of the main things we're trying to tell with our songs, you know, go back, find things we're connected to and present it in a new way.
Well, black metal and Christianity especially, but religions in general have a strong tie, and that in a friendly way, I might add, and especially Norway when there was church thousands and there were lots of kind of a protesting through music, in a way, culture against culture. How do you feel connected? Do you feel there's still place in that, in your music, in your band, or is it something that was kind of like, okay, that was 90s, but now it's different era?
I will always have a strong disconnection with religion, so to speak, and I think that I still feel that very strong, and it's always been a backbone of my life. I think that most religions are an evil, and I don't want it to be more a part of my life than I need to. On a personal level, I don't have it, but of course it surrounds you in every way, and it's a part of history, and you can't deny it. But I think mostly religion is evil that we should get rid of, and I think that was a picture painted in the 90s. I'm not saying that was my picture, but I agree to the sense that I think the world will be a better place without religion.
We could say that those kind of bands that started this kind of a cultural revolution, even if underground level, kind of brought people some information. Hey, we didn't used to be Christian country until some, I think it was King Olaf, if I'm not mistaken, like suddenly like, hey, Jesus, let's bring it by force, and suddenly like people like, fuck no, I don't want to be part of that. But you will die if you don't accept it. Okay, let's just not die. Let's take part of it. And that's what happened through the Scandinavia. But now it's more secular. Nobody is so much religious anymore. So could we start like cleaning it, like remove it?
I think it's happening. It's been for a while. I think that it's becoming less and less a part of many people's daily life. You know, of course there will always be cult and there will always be strong religions, but I think if you look to Norway today also, you know, most people don't relate to it, and if they do relate to it, it's more a part of their upbringing, their family, historical things, and then they're not really feeling religious, but they're doing maybe some religious traditions based on
like Easter church or whatever.
Stuff like that, you know, and if that's what they want, that's fine by them, but I feel that it has gotten a weaker position in, I guess, the most Nordic countries and societies over the last decades, and that's one thing going in the right direction, I guess.
All right. Now it's time to call it quits soon, but a couple of questions which actually came totally randomly in my mind, which I want to ask you personally. Have you ever noticed that you have actually in your traffic lights like one green guy and two red guys, if I'm not mistaken? Versus any other countries. I asked these corporate guys some 15 years ago, why do you do that? Why do you have those traffic lights, those pedestrian lights?
Good question.
Because I don't know.
I think I've heard that when you say it rings a bell. I don't think I've noticed it. I guess we are. We always need to be told twice. You know, we're stubborn, I guess.
What is the story of Norwegian trolls?
A good.
You have it now, animation movies, and nobody knows why.
No, it's a good tourist machine, I guess.
All right, where will Vreid be in 5 years? That is 2025, in case you're watching this in a couple of years.
Hopefully out doing shows there and still making riffs, I hope. If I'm still doing that, then I'm happy.
Will you make your best album in the future, or has it been already done?
It will always be the next one.
All right. Any words of wisdom for the band that is about to start right now after watching this video? Like, I love Vreid so much, I'm gonna make my own band, and I will take this one clue from this guy who is saying,
make the best riff you can.
Make your riffs. That is the basic foundation of good heavy metal music, heavy metal rock and roll music. Thank you for being here with us.
Pleasure.
Once again, there are links for you clueless bastards. Check out the bands, do your Spotify, YouTube, Bandcamp, whatever you can find. Do digging, do some listening, and when you're like finding, hey, this is actually a good band, go to see them on stage. They will kill you. Well, not literally, but you get my idea. Have your drinks, have your listening pleasure, and enjoy some good Norwegian black metal. This is all from Rauta and Metsämäki racetrack. We cannot see some horses. Just kidding. We will see some black metal. Take care. Good night. Thank you so much.
All right.
Like I said, this could have been going for